Discussing the top tracks from the artists we love. Top 5's with KXVU.
What's happening, people? We're back here once again on CubCamTV for this, another edition of Top 5's. I'm really excited to get into this one because today we're going to be checking out one of the most important UK underground albums already to ever exist. It is, of course, Ghetts with Conflict of Interest, and I've listened through this album numerous times. It's already one of the most classic grime albums we're ever going to hear, possibly the most. Given some time, it may well hit that position. For me, this is one of the most impactful albums we've had in years. Obviously, the Ghetts for #1 campaign is currently going on. I don't know if it will have hit #1 by the time this video lands. I'm recording it a couple of days before, and I'm going to drop it on the Friday, so hopefully it will have hit that #1 spot because it ultimately deserves to hit that #1 spot. For me, Ghetts has been one of the most important artists in grime since its inception, always bringing unique flavors and just a whole different stratosphere of energy levels to the scene. His unique grasp of lyricism has always been something which has set him apart from other performers and artists in the scene, and it's so incredible to see how well this album has done without him having to compromise on his style or his formatting. He has simply gone, I'm going to do it my way and people will like it, and they have, and it's so good to see the positive response that this album has achieved. So with that, we're going to be jumping into our top 5 tracks off the track listing for Conflict of Interest. I'm so excited to get into this list. I've had to listen through the album numerous times just to whittle it down. If you aren't already though, people, please make sure you are hitting that subscribe button at the bottom of the page, and of course alongside that, turning notifications on, leaving a like and a comment on the page as well, and following on Instagram and all social media platforms at KXVU. This one's going to be super enjoyable, so let's crack on. So, coming in at number 5, this was so hard to whittle down to 5 places. I've got to say that right from the off because the levels on this album are so high. Featuring Mirror May, this one goes by the name of Squeeze. Now, I am so excited to talk about this tune. It just shows the quality levels and thinking that have gone into this album. This is track 16 on an incredible track listing. So, when you break that down and go, okay, cool, we've got to get through 16 tracks to get here, you have to make sure that track 16 is something different, interesting, and sonically pleasing. And that's exactly what this tune is. It tries out so many different methods and different compositional styles. And the first thing we really have to talk about is Mirror May's incredible vocal on this one. We know she's got a fantastic vocal range, but the way this vocal comes out, it's so insanely bright, and yet it's eerie, it's spooky. It adds a kind of mystic feel to the whole piece of production, and that's definitely what you feel they were going for. And obviously it's definitely something they've achieved as well. It's truly astonishing just how well her vocal tone works. And then alongside that, we get to hear Ghetts bring out a really cool sounding auto-tuned harmonic vocal as well. The pair of them going back and forth, it's just on a sonic level so pleasing to listen to. It opens up a whole new dimension of soundscaping, and for me it's the perfect place in the track listing, because if you had this tune earlier on, it would have almost been lost in the incredible bits that are also going on. It would have been lost for me in the other sort of sounds that were going on. But the fact it comes in at the end and it just adds this whole different dimension to the project. Really well thought out album building stuff for me. So that's why this one sits at number 5 in today's listing. It is Squeeze featuring Mirror May. Be careful, coming in at number 4, we're going to get into this one, an incredibly emotional piece and a really thought-provoking piece of lyricism for me from Ghetts. This one goes by the name of Proud Family. Now, this was one of the singles that was released prior to the album dropping, and you're going to notice a theme with a lot of the tracks on here. Even though the quality levels on this album are so high, we have to bear in mind there are 16 tracks on this project. I've got it up in front of me on Spotify so I don't forget, but there are 16 tracks on this project, and not at one point does the quality level actually dip. It is consistent the entire way through. There's no wonder it's doing as well as it is. However, this tune, as I said, it goes by the name of Proud family, and this is a track where we really get to explore Ghetts' story more than anything else. We know Ghetts is an extremely gifted lyricist. We know he is one of the most naturally gifted writers to ever emerge out of the UK. In my opinion, he's also one of the most naturally gifted performers to ever emerge out of the UK. I've said it before on this channel. For me, he's the most complete MC we've ever had. But his writing ability and his way of kind of linking metaphors to what's going on, and also being able to storytell with such vivid imagery and kind of really get the pictures of what he's talking about into your head whilst he's performing. There are very few people that can do it in this country, and that's what makes this track here so special. The general soundscape approach to this one as well is really interesting. We hear these little sort of vocal speeches going on in between, these almost like skits within the tune, where we hear kind of just bits of conversation layered over it with really kind of airy pad textures above. Again, a nice break from what's going on around it in the composition. This is wedged between I believe this is wedged between Skengman and Sonia, which features Emily Sande. So we've got loads of different styles going on, and this again breaks up really good album composition with this one's placement. There we go. It's really solid. It touches on a lot of personal topics as well. We know Ghetts is so good at breaking those down, and yeah, it's just a solid piece of work, and that's why it sits at number 4 in today's listing.
Our family, proud family, from our granny to my children.
Coming in at number 3, again, this is one of the singles that was released prior to the album's release. It's an incredible tune. What a link up this one is. It's so well thought out. It is, of course, No Mercy, featuring Passalou and Back Row G. Now, something Ghetts is known for, and something we've seen in a lot of the television campaign for this album, is his kind of activity in and around the community, making sure artists are kind of being brought through in the right way. And this, for me, is a perfect embodiment of that on this track. Ghetts knew this album would do well. I feel everyone kind of knew it would. So to see Passalou and Back Row G, after the year they both had in 2020, alongside the collaboration My Family, which for me, again, was one of the strongest tracks of last year, it's just a perfect way of representing that part of Ghetts' character on this project. For me, the hook on this one is one of the catchiest things I've ever heard. The high-pitched vocal lines we hear over those chorus blocks, absolutely incredible, and it just gets stuck in your head. I walk around the house singing it, and it's the same with so many tracks on this album. He's managed to find that little catchy element within the hooks on tunes, which just elevates them to a whole new level. Incredible stuff. And then obviously we hear Passalou's verse, we hear Back Row G's verse, both of them deliver, and the beautiful thing is they don't shy away from their own style. They sound exactly like themselves over 140, and it's a fantastic way of showcasing them to a whole new audience. And then alongside that, we've barely talked about Ghetts' vocal. Again, so precise, so clean, so just well-rounded in his approach. For me, you can tell the veteran status from the way he performs and the confidence in which he's able to move around different levels of energy within the tune. Amazing stuff, and that's why it sits at number 3 on today's listing.
No motherfucking mercy. No mercy.
Moving into the top 2 tracks, this is where it gets very sticky indeed. Coming in, it is a collaboration, as both of the top 2 tracks are. It is Skengman featuring Stormzy. Now, one thing I want to say is about this one, you have to go and check out the music video for it. It's an incredible piece of art. The way it's all been put together, the cartoon nature of it, absolutely amazing. And that kind of ties into what we're talking about here, because the instrumental on this tune, for me, is one of the strongest pieces of grime production ever made. The whole approach of it just conjures up the image of like gangland Chicago in the 1950s. Almost like I'm getting the image of like a Dick Tracy yellow hat. I'm getting that sort of mobster suit look. The whole kind of vibe of it just has that really kind of cityscape feel, and it's just got such an amazing overall compositional style to this one. You have to point that out before we get into the vocals, like, because those horns, the way they just sweep across, it's almost like there's villains walking on and off screen. It's amazing on a compositional level. But for me, on a conversation about Ghetts' feature on this, obviously it's his tune. We do have to talk about it. His vocal on this is him at his grimy best. Lyric-wise, he sounds so composed. Just the way he's able to link up certain metaphors and sound so simple in the way he's doing it. The pockets he's able to find are incredible. And the interesting thing about this one as well is obviously Stormzy's vocal on there as well, because it's a very clean vocal. For me, it's one of the better features we've heard from Stormzy in recent times. It felt like the fire was back for this one, definitely. And you do actually get to hear a bit of a reply to Chip. Obviously, those two have been going back and forth a little bit. We haven't heard an official response from Stormzy, but the whole approach on this one just works. It's so cold in the way it's been put together. You do get little mentions of that Chip beef, and his just general kind of conviction to the tune, I feel, works really well. And then following that, we get a second verse from Ghetto, essentially. We actually get to hear that alter ego of Ghetts. We see him cycle through them all the time. And this time we just get some pure venomous grime. The way he projects, the way he is able to enunciate certain words, and that sort of guttural kind of edge he's able to put on his voice over this last section, it just sells the tune for me. So that's why this one, in all its glory, sits in number 2 on today's listing.
Skengman.
So we are finally here, moving on to track number 1 off this incredible album project from Ghetts, and it is, of course, Mozambique, featuring JK and Moonchild Sanelli. This one, for me, was the best track of 2020. There's no getting away from it. For me, this was the outstanding piece of work from last year. I may be slightly biased because I'm a massive Ghetts fan, but it was also voted the track of the year on Trickstar Radio as well. So we got all the presenters to vote. Everyone gave their opinion on what the track of the year was, and this was it. So you can't shy away from that. It's not just me being biased. But for me, it's incredible. This was the first track off the album we actually heard, and it still holds up. It still sounds like the strongest track on the album for me, even though we've rinsed it for over a year. It's amazing that the track still holds that much weight. Possibly Rude Kid's strongest piece of instrumental creation as well. The whole approach to the instrumental is just solid. So many interesting sounds and soundscapes get explored, and it just works. All the different switch-ups, the little use of the original Top 3 Selected theme woven into the layout, incredible stuff. You've got to give props to Rude Kid on this one because it does elevate the tune. However, we do have to talk about the vocals. Let's talk about the collaborative parts first. Moonchild Sanelli's incredibly catchy hook is definitely one that, as I said before, I've been walking around the house singing along to it. So catchy, and obviously she has that kind of vocal over the bridge as well, which again just adds storyline to the tune. Really cool stuff from her, and it's the first time I'd heard her as well, and it's just the collaboration that really works. It's the first time we actually see that sort of branding, that sort of comic booky, almost like pencil crayon sort of design over the top of the video. There was a filter for it as well. I think there was an Instagram filter for it at the time. Just amazing stuff. There's so many levels to this project. JK's verse for me on this as well is one of my favorite verses I've ever heard from JK. Slightly cheeky, some good kind of back and forth metaphors on there. I remember there being a couple of bars that were quite like simple, but bars that I'd never heard before, and that's always a plus for me if you can come up with a simple metaphor that works. And it's still land, and I've not heard it before. That's always points from me. And then Ghetts' verses are both just amazing. Like, there's no getting away from it. This was Ghetts, for me, just announcing himself as one of the strongest artists we have in the UK, without a shadow of a doubt, when this first landed. Amazing stuff. And then the final verse from Ghetts as well just sells it. This is what we know about Ghetts, man. He can do those final switch-up verses. Very similar to the tune with Stormzy, I feel, in that respect. He just arrives at the end with this killer, almost like cavalry charge of a verse, and that's what really sells this one. It stood the test of time. Well, it stood the year test of time. The album's dropped, and it still for me sits as the most powerful tune, and for me is one of the most unique grime tracks of all time. That's why it sits at number 1 on today's listing. So there we go.
Yo, what's wrong with these niggas? Man can't tell me about these streets. Man never grew up near no damn beats. Man's got shooters from Mozambique.
Right then, guys, that's it from me. I hope you have enjoyed this list. As always, if you aren't already subscribed, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button at the bottom of the page, getting involved in the channel, and if it's not already at number 1, I can't remember what the exact hashtag is, but let's get it up there. Let's get this to number 1, because this is without a doubt one of the most important albums we've ever had land in the UK, and it needs to be represented in that way. So let's make sure we're doing that. I hope you have enjoyed this top 5 video, and we shall see you all next time. Peace.
Discussing the top tracks from the artists we love. Top 5's with KXVU.